Hi all. So, been a little busy, but that's good because lots of progress. So we pulled that new white center section, hoping the fact that I wouldn't have to do any work to it, and we had a little bit more pre-release, which bit of a pain. So basically I've had to fill basically where it came away from the mold and I'm gonna have to spray that with gel coat, and when we alter the doors we're going to spray them with gel coat as well. So yes, a bit of a pain. I was hoping that it would just come out of the mold and we'd buff and polish. Now you can see the difference between the old mold and the new mold here. This is the new mold because it actually has a surface finish. We can get a pretty shiny finish straight out of the mold. This is, you'll see there's no sheenness to it at all because basically it's copied the original mold surface. Now because there's no gel coat or stuff or finishing part of the mold, it's straight to the carbon, which is the mold's made from carbon. Doesn't work very well, so we are going to pull a new center section mold. Now not from this car, we're just going to complete this car as is for the moment. Worry about, so there is going to be some changes. We are going to pull slightly different door shape, slightly different windscreen shape, slightly different side screen shape. We have changed the roof shape quite a bit now. It's got a very sharp edge along here now, along the top, whereas it didn't have before. So I've changed that, but to be honest, we're going to do a completely new center section. But say not for this car. This car's got to get, I've got to start doing some road miles and get some testing and development done on this. See if I like certain things I did, see if I don't like, change them if I don't like them. You know, the rubber bushes on this particular car that go on the suspension, if they've got too much travel, then we can limit them, etc, etc. So there are some development ideas in this car that I really want to test out before I kind of make them on whatever subsequent vehicles. So yes, so the cars that we've started to do the paneling on the bulkhead. Done the rear bulkhead panel, the lower bulkhead panel. Unfortunately, no matter how I try, I can't get it in with the engine in, so bit of a shame. Made the panel up, but I effectively can't fit it for the moment. But yes, it's nice to see the car getting closer to all the same color once we spray the doors, get rid of the locks and get rid of these, get rid of the fuel cap areas because we don't need any of those. We'll have one fuel filler cap on the other side, and it'll be in the rear clip in the actual center section. So quite a few changes coming on that, on the next vehicle anyway. So rear clip mold. Finally, I'm on the last section. 6 parts to this particular mold. Just on the last rear section here, this is part of the actual car, and you'll see there's a 3-inch section kind of all the way along to there, and then that's the underguard for the tyre there as well. So a lot of this paneling is just the for the mold itself. So we're not actually hardly any of that, to be honest, is bodywork, and all of that's pretty much covered under the bottom of the car and where the diffuser sits, but it's got to be done. So larger petition, or larger, albeit the car only needs about sort of 2 inches from there. That's got sort of, it made sense just to go straight across, and it makes a stronger structure for the mold. So realistically, but we're close. We're very, very close. Eagle Eyes spotted you that this front particular section here wasn't done with black gel coat, because we are basically changing the front section here where the fuel caps are, where these silly points are here. We don't need any more. It's going to be quite a difference to the Mark II, should we say. So what we're going to do is just, that was going to be a quick splash mold to basically take one rear clip out of this mold to put onto this car, and then basically we'll pull this front section off, and this, instead of being quite, well, you look at the car, it's easy to say, instead of having this one with a filler cap, which we won't need now because we don't have twin tanks, we have one, we're going to reduce that to probably by about 3 to 4 inches. It basically makes more room for the turbos, which if you can see, the turbos are very close to here. Already made minor changes to the CAD drawing where this tube comes up here. It doesn't leave very much bodywork there. So on the CAD drawing now I've dropped this tube an inch. So basically it makes this area here quite a bit more, gives us a bit more structure. We do tie the body into this cage point here just to give it a little bit of rigidity, but it would be nice to have a little bit, just a little bit more fiberglass in that corner. You're kind of cutting it away to down to about 30 mil. I don't really want to be that close. So yeah, annoyance having to do this because it should just come out of the mold okay, but we're having trouble with that carbon mold, so it's time to basically get rid of it. So eventually I'll just sell all that sort of molds off. I don't want them. And we'll have all the new stuff for this. So on that front, we have the unpolished but yet finished mold for the if I can find the part, for the wing mirror camera, however you want to say that. It's going to sit here. So this is now the camera mount for what's basically be a 5-inch screen in here. So that mold just needs a bit of polishing. The seat mold did not want to come off. The wide seat we've made, the mold did not want to come off. It was being a bit of a, yes, BITC 1H. What I eventually found is this part here had stuck. So the actual gel coat there had stuck in the corner at the very, very bottom and at the very, very top of the mold. Everywhere else was fine, but that had stuck. And when I pulled, eventually just got really brutal with it and pulled the seat out of the, pulled the mold off of the seat, it pulled away all the gel coat in that bottom piece and right tucked up under the top here. So we had to repair the seat. It's in a place that you're never going to see there on the top section, which was here. We're going to see here, so we've repaired the gel coat in that. But it also took a chunk of gel coat out of here. So we're just repairing it. I need to put a little bit more because there's not quite enough there. So seat mold, car. Yes, for the eagle-eyed amongst us, I bought a Lotus. I had no plans to buy a Lotus Esprit. Just kind of happened because right price, right time. And yeah, I didn't kind of need this kind of bit in the middle. It's probably going to annoy a few Lotus purists, should we say, but effectively we are changing the engine and gearbox. The gearbox had actually detonated itself, or pretty much cranial and pinion had shattered, and the gearbox was toast. But on this particular models, this is a very early turbo, we call it Series 4, but it's called an X180, but whatever. It's an 88 Esprit, and it had the Citroen gearbox with the inboard brakes. Yes, so the wheels and the outboard part of the brake don't have any brakes in there, which is a shame because the gearbox I'm putting in it, I probably can't put brakes on. So, what turned into a very, I don't know, it came cheap enough. I won't say it was a dream car of mine, but it's definitely something that I've always liked. So we are going to have to re-engineer the rear uprights. So we're going to do some billet rear uprights for this car to then accept a brake package on the outside. We may swap the rims to later. They did a 17 and 18 staggered rim set, which actually has the same rolling outside tyre diameter as this, so you won't lose any wheel arch clearance, should we say, because it's about the same. And we're going to go, it's an Audi gearbox, because that seems to be the next strongest gearbox up without having to spend a lot of money. And we're going a V6 bi-turbo 5-valve or a 30-valve V6, basically out of a car called an Audi Allroad, but it's pretty much the S4 motor with smaller turbos, which obviously we shall correct when we put it in. So motor's 4 inches shorter than the original Lotus. Actually allows me to push the motor forward slightly. Fun fact is the actual gearbox is a little bit too far back on this. This was a 4-cylinder 2.2 turbo. The drive shafts went from the gearbox out to the wheels. So we shall correct that, push it forward. It does weigh about 80 pounds more than the original motor, but we can make 500 horsepower out of a 2.7 Audi V6, no problem at all. So we're going to upgrade this from its, unfortunately, semi-wheezy 220 horsepower. It's going to make 500 horsepower. And yeah, it's already got a gearbox on the way. Already got the Audi 2.7 bi-turbo actually sitting in the complete car outside. So at some point we'll strip that motor out, but what we have done is once we bought the Esprit, I knew that I was probably never going to use the 2-cylinder engine that's in it. It's a very old mechanical Bosch Jetronic Jetronic fuel injection system. Pretty much we're going to change that. We'll change the whole electrical system as well. So we'll use the second PDM that we bought for the car over there. The spare one there, we'll fit that in here, get rid of all the wiring, rewire the whole car. Looking probably going to go Max ECU. That's MAXX ECU. They do a plug and play kit for a 2.7 bi-turbo Audi. Now, it won't be bi-turbo in the end because the turbos would interfere with basically where the chassis rails are, but we'll pull the two turbos off. We'll pull the exhaust at the back and we'll put a single turbo at the back because we have lots of room. This is technically boot area here, which we don't need. Well, I'll try and keep as much of the boot as I can, or trunk, but theoretically the turbo is going to go into the back of here, so we're probably going to run something like a GTX 3176 Garrett, because that'll safely make 600 horsepower. So 500 horsepower Lotus Elise should be pretty good, since even the V8s only had like 350 or so. Yet again, probably because the limitation that Lotus had was the gearbox, which basically couldn't take that power. The 01E the 01E Audi box didn't come out until basically way past this. So their only options were originally was the Citroen, and then later on, which I think is about the 89 or 90 version of this. So 1 or 2 years later, all the cars went to the Renault UN1, which still has its limitations, but it did allow them to push 350 horse, but it's still always going to be a limitation. But yes, we have a 1988 Lotus Esprit with very 80s kind of leather interior, but it should be fun. So Cobra and 911 are going pretty soon. They're not going very far away, but they're coming out of the shop, so we'll have a bit more space. And yes, that's kind of about it at the moment. Fiberglassing and sanding and painting, but we should be able to. There's a show tail end of September that's local to me, and I'd like to have, before the show season, that literally is normally the last show of the year, I'd like to have all of the body in white and basically be able to take at least the rolling shell as it is. We might just put the dash top on, but I haven't done the dash bottom yet. Wasn't happy with the system we had there before, so I'm going to remake that. But it's nice to be able to take the whole body, all painted or all gel coated in white, and we'll take it to a show and see what reactions we get. But yeah, so busy doing other stuff. It took a day or so to take the engine out the Lotus. So oh yeah, last but not least, headlamps. Now, yeah, it's a little tacky. The clay headlamps, I wasn't sure of the particular process that I've used on here, so I tried a quick sample. I made a clay object, just a generic shape. I sprayed that object with varnish or shellac, sealed it with shellac, and then I sprayed it with this product, which is a Duratec polyester based product, and I polished that. Once I polished that, I took a quick mold off the top of it just to make sure that it separated nicely, and it did. So I was super happy. It didn't crinkle up, didn't screw up in any way, which I've had problems with clay stuff doing that before. Without putting an epoxy coating on the top, it had a tendency of the heat soak in there made the clay just screw up underneath. So did that quick test, and that worked pretty well. So I put three layers of shellac on here. I've just put a quick, so 2 coats of this Duratec on. We'll go around now and just fill all the little bits and pieces, all the little tiny holes. knock them down tomorrow, and then we'll put another 2-3 coats of this polyester product, and that should be enough then to sand and buff back, and then we could take the molds for the headlamps. So headlamps should be progressing. Obviously I'm doing all this while I'm laying the fiberglass on that, so we are pretty much in August now. I would hope by the end of August I'll have two headlamp bucks, or 2 headlamp molds, should we say, and then we can make some carbon headlamp, however you want to call them, buckets. Anyway, yes, that's the car at the moment. Last big mold for this car anyway. So molds for doors, molds for center section, and a minor alteration to the rear clip that will be coming, but that probably will be the following winter. I can start the new center section, I can mock that up on basically on a wooden buck just to do the alterations that I want to do, but realistically this car as is should be all in white. I hope, God forbid, I hope by the end of with any luck, end of August, first 2 weeks in September, we should have a completely white car, and I'll push it outside and take some photographs, because I'm sure that'll look yeah, a lot better. Okay, speak to you all soon.